come from outside of the town also. There are local people here too. But really, we are so glad to see you all there. Heartfelt thank you from on part of myself and the board of directors of LID2. My name is Rashid Khokhar, just in case you do not know. I'm currently serving this community as the president of the LID2 board. Levy Improvement District 2 is the Fort Bend County Levy Improvement District, and I am the president of the board. But of course, I do have other board members who are here with me today, and without their help and all that, nothing like this will be possible. May I please ask Sam Gallion, please to say up. He is one of the board members. Jeff Wiley. And then we have two friends in missing. Upendra Sahu could not be here. He was out of town, I believe. And Michael Sverka. He is not here. I think he also had some prior commitments. He could not get out of it. But really, they are all very, very dedicated folks. They work very hard, and they really do care. Well, I'm saying they, including me. We all really do care for our constituents, our citizens, whose good money that we all use to come up with this pump station and all that. So thank you very much, my board members, please. Thank you very much. Also, at the same time, I would like to thank the other consultants who worked with us. I was telling someone just a short while ago that I really feel so proud of all the people who are working for the LID2, because while they may be paid, but their dedication is unbelievable. They're all working for the same goal at the same time without worrying too much about this, that, and everything else. So it's really a great blessing to have all of these people working for you. And that's why we have been rather successfully too. Of course, our predecessors that did all this before us have set a very high standard. And one of those gentlemen who has left us is the one we are commemorating his day today, Andre McDonald. I used to call him sometime Andre the Giant. You remember the wrestler? And he would jokingly say, "You mean the Jolly Green Giant?" but he was nice. In a short while I worked with him, I learned a lot, and we miss him. We really do miss him, and I'm sure as you all miss him too. But hey, that's life goes on, and you know that we are really so glad that we are commemorating this day here today in his honor, as well as dedicating this workstation, this pump station in his name, because he really truly deserved it. And he was very hardworking in this case. One of my responsibilities is to recognize any of the elected officials or officials who may be here, please. Of course, we have our mayor, Joe Zimmerman, with us. Then we have council member Carol McCutcheon. And we have council member Stuart Jackson. And, I'm sorry, so Jacobson, that I was in a hurry to say that I have served with him when he was the chairman of the Fort Bend ISD Bond Oversight Committee. And now I'm the chairman of that committee. So next, guess what I'm going to do next? Thank you for your votes. Thank you for your votes already. Okay. And we also have, of course, council member Naushad Karmali. He is here too. And not least, but not the last, or last but not the least, we have our own Andy Myers, Commissioner of Precinct 3. And as you all know, this area that you're all sitting in is in Precinct 3, which is Andy Myers, Commissioner of. Thank you very much, sir. And he is so dedicated to the cause. I'm saying it again just for everybody's understanding there. Thank you, sir. All right. So, you know, I'm not going to say anything about Andre, because there will be folks who will be coming up and saying that. But all I can say is that it was really a very unique experience to work with him, learn things from him, his dedication. And as the board president now, I'm hoping if I can do that in the minutest way to carry on in his tradition, hey, I will be very good. Okay? So thank you for his service, and of course, I'm sure he is looking down upon all of us and watching us and commemorating him. The next task is to go ahead. Oh, by the way, if I'm going to go ahead now and ask, is there anyone here who is from other LID boards or LIDs or MUDs? Please stand up so we can recognize you, please. Thank you, everyone. And while we are celebrating this as LID2 event, I can assure you that all the LIDs here are really cooperating with one another. When I joined the LID board, I was really amazed to find out there is a Sugarstone Creek, parameter levy, right? What a beautiful idea. I don't know who came up with that. It was there before me, but it's such a beautiful idea. Can you imagine how much money has been saved in doing this ring thing? Tremendous, very nice idea, very good idea, very useful idea. So all these folks, thank you very much for all your cooperation and being here to commemorate this event with us. Thank you. All right, so the next item is then the Council of Sugarland, the sweet city that we all live in. Well, most of us live in, the good people live in. Well, hey, sugar sweet, sugar. We're all sweet people.
You can see he's running for office.
I have, as I said, I'm following the footsteps. Stuart set them up. No. I live in her district, so I have to wait. Okay, we'll talk about that. So the Council of Sugarland has passed a resolution, and of course, setting this as the ADM day. I'm going to request our Honorable Mayor Joe Zimmerman please to come forward and read or present this proclamation that the city has passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rashid. Well, indeed, it's an honor to be here, Emily. I don't think you and I had met before, and I'm sorry for your loss. You know, for those of you that don't know, I first met Andre when we served on the Sugarland Planning and Zoning Commission together, and he was how can I say it? He was an outsized presence. I had the good. He mentored me along. I later became chair. I think he was the one that made the motion to make me chair. I was so new on the board that I didn't even know what he was doing. The next thing I knew, I was the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, where I served for 8 years until we were term limited. You know, I'll always remember that in those meetings, if Andre always had something to say, and he was always succinct with how he said it, and he was always passionate. He always had a smile on his face. I don't think Mike Jensen's with us, but Mike was also on that board with us. We had a great commission, and Andre was one of those people. But the real contribution, I think, to Sugarland and to the county and the overall community was the work that he put in to the levee system. Fort Bend Flood Management Association, I remember as a consultant being called many times to pony up my $1,000 so I could sponsor that. I never did any work, but he was always good about involving us, and he was always good about involving members in the community. So I have great memories of both he and Jeannie and the contribution he made to the LIDs and the benefit that we all, as Sugarland and as the residents of Sugarland, have received. So with that, let me read a proclamation. Andre McDonald Day, October 26th of 2022. Whereas Andre D. McDonald, a 28-year resident of Sugarland, served unselfishly as a member of the Fort Bend County Levee Improvement District No. 2 Board for over 20 years. Whereas, I'm going to use Andre, served in leadership positions in several national and state levee organizations. In doing so, he brought national attention to the unique characteristics and the unparalleled quality of the Fort Bend County levee system. And whereas Andre was selected and served on the National Academy of Sciences on a special committee advising FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, as to the treatment of levees within the National Flood Insurance Program, and provided advice on how these levee-related policies and activities could be improved. And whereas Mr. McDonald had a vision for a safer levee system for all the residents of First Colony and Fort Bend Levee Improvement District No. 2 after Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Andre was instrumental in making the district's third pump station a reality in less than 5 years. all with local monies and no federal funding. And for those of you that don't know, accomplishing something like that without federal is pretty extraordinary. I mean, the city of Sugar Land we've recently begun to seek or begin to go after federal money, but we never did before. We didn't believe that was the right thing to do. So, I want to say thank you for what you gave up for your dad, because I know when he worked, and he may not have been home, but his heart was always there. Loved his family, loved you and your brother and Jeannie, and it's with that I want to present this to you. He's now president of the levy district. So.
Well, I take it, of course, I accept it on behalf of the board and the LID2 residents. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, this is for the pump station, okay? So, really this whole event that you all see here was, the purpose of this was twofold. One of them was, of course, to honor our friend who has left us. The second one was to showcase what Mayor hinted upon, that all that you see here has been done without a single red cent from anyone else but the residents of this LID2. LID2 has done it all on their own, and we are following all the standards that have been set by either FEMA or Corps of Engineers and all that, but all the money came from here. So please understand that, leave us alone a little bit, give us the standard, and we will do it. No, it's, of course, the purpose is here to showcase, really, it's a natural audience here. We have people coming here we have David Master here with us, he's FEMA. So we have good people here. I want them to take this message outside and say, hey, this is one way to do things. All right? Thank you, sir. Also, this whole event, by the way, not a single red cent again has been spent of the LID2 money. All of the money that has been spent here for this event has come from our sponsors. And I would like to name them because they do deserve some recognition. I don't want them to stand up or anything. I don't know whether anybody is here or not, but I will just try to read as correctly as possible. Allen Boone Humphreys Robinson LLP, ABHR, Costello Incorporated, LID Solutions. LID Solutions, by the way, all you that you see here, maintenance, they do an excellent job. Enchanted Rock Energy. You all heard the story of the Enchanted Rock. What a beautiful story. I mean, just imagine, by doing that kind of a contract, and Mike Stone and Philip talked about that in this morning session. $7 million, it's a big chunk of money that got saved. And not only that, as Greg was pointing out, from Enchanted Rock, ongoing maintenance costs are not there. I want to kiss someone who came up with this idea. I don't know who that was. It was before me. So I can't be blamed for it, or I can't be credited for it. I would like to take the credit for it. Fries and Nichols, they do a lot of modeling for us. Hush Blackwell LLP, they are always there to help us. LJ Engineering and Surveying, beautiful people. I love them all. They do a very good job. Mike Stone and Associates. Oh, I'm sorry. He's going to speak after me, so I better be good. Mississippi Valley Flood Association. Steve, so nice to meet you this morning, and I'm going to try to be here on December 1. Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mart LLP. They are legal. And Tech 3 that you see here, the live feed and all that, they are doing a fantastic job. And KLR, you see these these sketches and these drawings are all done by KLR. And not last again, but not least but the last, Tina and Janelle. These people have. You see all this arrangement here? Almost, I would not argue with her. She will order you, and you better follow that order. No question about that. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I think we call on those people whom I'm trying to avoid calling them, Mr. Mike Stone.
Mike Stone. Come on up, Mike.
He's going to talk to you about the inception to reality that the pump station, how it came about. Thank you, sir.
So everybody that listened to the presentation this morning, I'll only repeat 2/3 of it. How's that? Actually, I want to back up for a second, and I don't want to repeat that story, but I do want to tell you about how we came to build this station and really get it operational about 4 years after Harvey, and we're still have a couple of contracts. There's not a brick wall out here. There's not some landscaping that needs to be done. There's a little interior work that we still are trying to get done. But basically this thing has been ready to run all 7 pumps for the last year. So that's a pretty remarkable thing. But I want to back up just a little bit before that. So I came to work and started helping LID2 with projects back in 2005, 2006 era. But I had known particularly Jeannie McDonald for years before that when she was at Vincent and Elkins. And I'm so glad that Joe B's here today. I haven't seen Joe B in a while, but you know, when you back up to, I remember when this was all cow pastures and part of the Frost Ranch and part of the prison system. You know, there was nothing out here, and we began building all of this. You know, I was a very, very young man at that time. And it's hard to imagine how much it's changed. And I really didn't know Andre until the late 90s. I loved your mother, just loved her. I'm glad your dad never found out. But we knew each other for years. And to be real honest with you, Andre could be pretty difficult to work with. He was very, very passionate and very determined to do things his way. But we had a bond because we both started out in the construction business. We both worked overseas. We respected each other. We disagreed on things. We would agree on things. We would disagree. But the one thing we always had is a real desire to do the right thing for flood, protecting people from floods in LID2. I got my first paycheck in 1966. Building the Surfside levee. I'd worked overseas, he had worked overseas, he had worked on levee projects, so we had a lot in common. That still didn't prevent some conflict challenges at times, let's just put it that way. But the really good thing is Andre knew when to take good advice. He knew good advice when he heard it, and he'd take it. Sometimes you'd have to explain it to him 3 times, but he would get it. The one thing that he and I both agreed on, and the rest of the board, is we wanted LID2 to be the very best levee district, not in Fort Bend County, not in Texas, but the best levee district in the United States, period. We didn't want anyone to ever say there was a better district than LID2. So, 5 years ago, when Harvey came along and water got in a house, it was an utter shock to us because we didn't think that was possible, and we took it as a personal offense that it happened on our watch, and we vowed that that would never happen again. And I'm glad Joe's here today, the mayor. Joe and I have a little history as well. I'm not a resident of Sugar Land, so I can say things.
Careful, Mike.
So, while there was still water in the street and water in the houses, I'm on the phone with the mayor saying, we've got a problem, we got to figure out what the solution is. And the first thing that we got to do is figure out why this happened. And we agreed that we would find the answer in the next 30 days. We're going to get an answer and figure out what the problem is. We made the deal before daylight while water was still in houses, and we went to work. So, Mayor, you'll remember this. Thursday afternoon, 3:30, 3 days after the water went down, we're meeting with all the residents who flooded. Challenging meeting. We had a lot of people very, very upset that had lived here for years, never had an issue. All of a sudden they have water in their houses. And the only thing we could tell them is, we're not exactly sure what happened, but we will find out, and we will find the answer, and we will figure out a solution, and we're going to do it very quickly. And we did. We actually hired Freeze and Nichols, and Hector's back here somewhere. I saw him. There he is, right there. And Mark helped. We hired them, and Greg Frank had his surveyors out and with Costello, and we measured slabs. And 30 days later, we had a pretty good idea of exactly what happened. We worked on a little presentation. His magic with his graphics that are slightly better than stick pictures, but we're still using them today, so they must be good enough. And we had a meeting just around the corner over here at St. Lawrence Parish Hall with quite a few folks. I don't know how many people there. Carol, you were there. It was a lot. The mayor was there. I saw our Commissioner Patterson, who is retired now. There he is back there. He helped out. But we met with folks and we told them, here's why you had water in your house. LID2 didn't have enough pump capacity. We fessed up. We didn't have enough pumps. That's why people got water in their house. For years, we thought we had enough pumps, but the truth is, things had changed. We had some bad information from way many years ago. Nobody's fault, really. There were no requirements when a lot of those were built in a lot of the subdivision. But the reason people got water in their houses was we didn't have enough pumps. That was the bad news. The good news is we can buy more pumps. We can build a bigger pump station. And given enough money and time, we can fix this. And we think we can do it in about 4.5 years. It took a little longer, but not a lot. There were a few things that happened in between that were out of our control. But we stayed in touch with all of the residents. And Jorge's not here with the city, but Jorge and I thought we were dating for a while because we were meeting somewhere in Sugar Land about 2 or 3 times a week. You know, as I used to tell people, if you can get 3 people and you have cookies, we will come and make a presentation on what happened and what the fix is. And we had some meetings at some people's house with 5 and 6 people. There were cookies. And we made our pitch and said, here's what we're doing, here's our plan, and here's how we're going to do this. But we stayed in touch with everybody. We made a lot of meetings. We hired AECOM to design the pump station on an expedited basis. We had them under contract less than 5 months after the water went down. They were under contract to design this pump station. And we asked them to do it in the most expedited manner they could. Which they did. We did not look for any other money. We figured out what we thought the cost would be. The pump station is the biggest part of this, but it's the pump station and all of the appurtenances that go with it is a $55 million project. But we actually had a program of $88 million, fixing ditches, getting more detention in the ditches was also a big part of it. And we got to work as soon as we could get drawings out, and we actually started buying pumps before we had the drawings complete for the pump station, but we knew the pump size. We started working the deal with Enchanted Rock. And it saved the money, but I'm going to tell you again, it's the reliability is the real reason to do that. We started working on getting ditch design ready to go out for bids to get that additional detention. But I'm gonna go. I said something about this morning, but some of y'all weren't there. I'm gonna say this again. The real important thing that LID2 did, and there are really two things. They're somewhat, is when we went in December and had this board retreat and got everybody on board to agree that this is the plan, and as long as we could construct all of this and afford it financially and not bankrupt the district or take on a lot of debt that we didn't think was appropriate, we were going to do all of these projects. And we got, the board was all in agreement, set a vision, and then they did the right thing. They looked across the table and they looked at Phil and I and said, now y'all go do that. and they asked hard questions along the way, but basically they got out of the way. That's important because our job was to get all of the other consultants to row in the same direction. That's really the goal all the time. And that was really huge. And when you think about doing projects like this, you know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. This project was no different. We had things that didn't work out. We had, you know, our pump supplier, the most critical piece, they had a bad accident at their facility. OSHA shut them down for 6 months. Not a lot you can do about that, you know. COVID came along. Geez, man, right in the middle of a time-critical project. The other thing that we were doing, though, is, and we continue this even to this very day, is we stayed in touch with the residents about what the project was, where we were, the status, what the completion date, and of course, some of you elected officials and folks, y'all are going to be shocked when you tell folks a schedule on a complicated project before you've drawn the first line on the paper that we think we can open on this date, and then you send out a notice 2.5 years later during the middle of COVID, et cetera, that the opening date's probably going to slide some. They're like, you're just a lying sack. Never mind. You get the hint. But things happen, and but we stayed in touch with everybody, or we tried to. And the result is we've got a pretty good project. We still have a few things to do. This is a great facility. I think all of the consultants and contractors that have worked on this have done a really, really good job. I'm really proud of it. And the good news, which I take comfort in every night, I think Andre would too, is I remember meeting with him with a graph that I think actually Hector and Mark put together over at Freeze and Nichols. We came back and said, if we build this pump station and we have Harvey after the completion of this pump station, there won't be a single street with water in the curb with the exact same event once this is running. If Harvey happens tomorrow, there won't be a single street within LID2 that has, if it does, it's because Chris Tubing and Jorge have not sized the storm sewers correctly. It's not a LID2 problem, it's a city problem. So anyway, we're real proud of it. We're really glad y'all came out. Appreciate Mr. Marstad coming down. Appreciate all you folks. Rob, I didn't mean to criticize your levee too badly up in Arkansas, but you know what you've got. We're real proud of it. We're glad y'all came out, wander around. Is there somebody else that's supposed to be talking after me?
Oh, we're talking. Right here.
Oh, Glenn, I forgot. I should look at the program you prepared.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, I actually thought of this last night.
Okay.
And I didn't write it down, so I didn't remember it. It's absolutely appropriate to dedicate this pump station to Andre McDonald because he was so dedicated to this district. And that's not a lie. That is the absolute truth.
Took it right out of my speech. That's my whole speech right there. excuse me for using a few notes, but I have a lot of material, and I'm going to make it brief, but I have a lot of little funny stories about Andre that I think you'll appreciate. And we're here today to honor our friend Andre McDonald, a man of intellect, energy, and passion. Look at this crowd. About 100 people here to celebrate the life of Andre McDonald. And today, I'm going to talk just a little bit to fill in the holes of how we got to this, how this event came to be. Not the pump station, but this celebration. A little bit about Andre's early life, because I knew him, I've known him for 65 years. And his levee legacy, and a few funny stories along the way. First, a little bit about how we got to this event. As it was touched on earlier, Andre passed away December 8th of last year. What nobody has mentioned yet, I don't think, is that Jeannie passed away 3 months earlier. Immediately after Andre passed, I started thinking about this pump station, which was under construction. Andre, as you know, poured his energy and intellect passionately into making this and the Fort Bend levees the best in the country. And that passion is the reason we're naming this pump station. After Andre passed, one night about 10 o'clock, I went to my computer and I started writing. And at 1 o'clock, I looked up and I'd written about 6 or 7 pages, single-spaced. Went to bed. The next day, I said, Debbie, look at this. Debbie Kaufman, she's sitting over here. And she said, Glenn, this is exactly what Andre would have wanted. You got the Mardi Gras theme. He loved Mardi Gras. He loved New Orleans. He loved the levees. And we put together an event that had education, networking, New Orleans food, fun, jokes, the whole 9 yards. This is perfect. So for the next 10 months, from December till now, all we really did was just kind of fill in the spaces. Who's speaking where, we just filled in the outline. It was all done back in December. Now, this is a very special event, and I'll tell you why. You got people from Mississippi right here, a big group of you. And thanks for coming, guys. You know, you guys, they came 800, 600 miles to get here. They just rolled in. You got NAFSMA, the National Association of Stormwater Managers. You got National Waterways, Mississippi Valley, as I've talked about, Louisiana Levees, and Fort Bend Levee EDC Committee. Andre was active in all of these. I don't remember ever having these 5 groups together. I don't think it's ever happened. So this is a historical event. Naming this pump station is very, very appropriate. It hasn't been mentioned yet, but this is the largest inland pump station in the state of Texas. 1 million gallons per minute. Now, there are 4 other pump stations larger, but they're all on the coast and they serve a different purpose. But if you look in an urban environment with hotels and city halls and big homes around, you're not going to see another pump station 1 million gallons a minute. That's pretty impressive walking through there. We're calling this event Living Large in Sugarland, Mardi Gras style. And the Mardi Gras colors are gold, purple, and green. Gold for power, purple for justice, and green for faith. And I believe that represents this pump station very well. Power. When the lights go off, we have another Ike. Shanted Rock can generate 11 megawatts of power. Do you realize how much power that is? That is enough power to power 11 HEBs 24 hours a day. That's how much power that is. 1 megawatt per HEB. Justice. We know this is the right thing for the residents of LID2. As Mike just said, if we'd had this pump station, there wouldn't be any water in the streets. If we had half this pump station, nothing would have flooded. And faith. We have the faith that this new pump station will keep Sugarland dry. The Smart Financial Center, owned by the city, is right across my left shoulder. And I don't know if you remember this, Joe, but back in December at an EDC meeting, I said, Joe, do you think we could get the lights Mardi Gras colors? And you said, you know, Glenn, we own it, but we don't really manage it. We can't tell them what to do. We can ask, but I wouldn't count on it. And if you remember, about 2 weeks ago, I called you again because we're getting close. And what did you say? Joe said, You know what, Glenn? You're in luck. Because the manager there left, and there's a new manager. And her name is Elise. Is Elise here? Okay, turn around. Lisa's waving in the back. Okay, there's Elise. So what did I do? I went over, and I called on Elise, and she said, "Hey, what is this guy, a salesman?" I just walked in there. But she was nice enough to come out, and I showed her what we were doing. And I said, "We're your neighbor right across the way. Would you please light up in the Mardi Gras colors for one night?" She said, "Let me see what I can do." 2 hours later, she wrote me an email, "We're going to do it." And so you pick the day. So I picked the day last Monday with a backup date in case it rained. And I went out and photographed it. And you'll see those pictures if you come to reception tonight. And those of you who were there this morning saw it. It's absolutely spectacular. Purple at the top, green and gold. And I sent her a picture. It really, really. And I've noticed you've used those colors a few times but after that. And all they do is rotate the purple. It says, "Oh, somebody else must have liked it too." There are two sides to Andre McDonald. And you know him as a Levy guy. But I know him as a relative. We're related. Andre's grandfather was my uncle. So we're related. But it's not quite as clean as that because Andre's mom and my grandmother both remarried. So Andre and I would sit around sometimes and say, "Well, how are we related? Are we cousins once removed? Are we half cousins?" We said, "Nah, we don't care. We're related somehow or another." But as growing up as kids, Andre and I would meet in Pine Hills, Mississippi. You guys, Mississippi, know where that is. Right there by Pass Christian. And our Aunt Eva Bell had a little summer cabin there. So my family would drive from Beaumont. That's where I grew up. He would drive from Bay St. Louis. And we would meet there and spend a week. And I got to know Andre very, very well. And Andre was that wise cousin that's 3.5 years older, and he was super smart. You guys know him. He was very, very smart. And he always had the right answer for everything. But it was there I learned how to spear flounder on the beach and avoid the moonshiners hiding in the Mississippi backwoods in Pine Hills. Andre was born in 1958, born here in Houston, moved to Dallas, but was raised by C.C. McDonald, his dad, a home builder and architect in Bay St. Louis. Andre worked for C.C. in high school and college, and that's where he started his construction. That's where he started learning to love construction. And Emily, I got to tell this story because I believe C.C. told it to you, and that is when there was a big rain event in Bay St. Louis and the ditches would fill up with water, Andre would go out and make some paper boats. He'd put them at the high end of the stream and watch the paper boats come down. Then he would take a shovel. He's about 5 years old. Take a shovel and go back to the other end, the high end, start moving the dirt around a little bit, making a little berm or levee, and come and let the boats go again. He would do this over and over and over all day long, come in filthy dirty. I'm sure your grandmother wasn't real happy with him. He didn't know it, but at age 5, he was preparing to be a levee director and a civil engineer. This is a true story. Andre grew up in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. He was an avid swimmer and sailor. And when we would meet, we would talk about these things. He attended Mississippi State University, studied civil engineering. He was then drafted into the Army, and guess what he did? He went in the Seabees Construction Battalion and was in Vietnam for 2 years building the barracks for the troops. Andre lived in New Orleans for many, many years. He loved living in New Orleans. And those of you who knew Andre and went to New Orleans with him knew that he loved to talk about his restaurants and his food, and he would take you to them. Okay, so Corinne talks about the muffulettas at Napoleon House. I talk about galatoirs. He always had one thing. Everybody knows, the trout meuniere. He would never get anything different. And if you ever been to galatoirs, it's the best thing on the menu. If you wanted oyster po' boys, you went to Johnny's. If you wanted seafood gumbo, to K. Paul's. I got a list here long. This is making me hungry. Anyway, Andre used to say when we went to K. Paul's that he had to go to New Orleans once a year just to re-register his taste buds for gumbo. He had to go back. I got to reset my taste buds. And he loved to have a meal, but during that meal, talk about the issues of the day. It might have been levee issues, it might have been whatever, but he never sat and had a meal and talked about football scores or anything. He didn't do that. He was always working. He was doing something when you were having a meal. And for those of you who ever bought Andre a fine meal, I know some of you consultants have, and you can all yell it out loud. He didn't say thank you. What did he say, Mike?
You're a good cook.
You're a good cook. He always said the same thing. You're a good cook. And heard it 100 times. While living in New Orleans, Andre worked for Aramco, Saudi Aramco, and he worked overseas. And as you know this, he would say that he loved playing with all the fun toys. He got to drive the big backhoe. Andre loved what he did. He never really grew up. He was always a kid playing with toys. He did it for Aramco. He did it for Bechtel. But working overseas, as you know, you work so many months on, then you have so many months off. Well, during those months off, in 1982, he's down by the pool at his apartment complex. He runs into a man named Ted Turner. You guys might know that name. Ted Turner in 1982 was just starting CNN. Well, Ted, and here comes our violinist. Come on in, guys. We got 2 seats. Got seats right up front for you and my family. So we're running a little ahead of schedule, so they're anyway. Hey, Georgie, we got a seat for you right here. And this is Chloe. You got 2 seats right there. So Ted Turner found out that Andre loved to sail. Ted owned a large sailboat. He sailed on Lake Pontchartrain. He was always needing crew because you can't take a sailboat up by yourself. It's just too dangerous. So he said, Andre, would you like to go sail on my sailboat? I need some help. He said, oh, would I? Of course I would. So he would tell me this story. He did this many, many times. Him and Ted Turner to sail the boat on Lake Pontchartrain. Now, Andre, as you know, and I'm going to just say this out loud, he had no moderation. Andre, the word moderation never came into his vocabulary. Some people, if you say that, that's offensive. Well, he's not here to. I'm just going to say it. He believed that life was for living, there for the taking. You needed to embrace it. He lived every moment to the fullest. Every moment. Pedal to the metal. That's what I would say. No moderation. You would never see Andre on a diet. You would never see in Andre's home sweet and low. No decaffeinated coffee. No diet beer. As Andre would say, it had to be fully leaded. That was the word he used. Remember, Emily? This has got. If they want some decaf, nope, fully leaded. I want fully leaded coffee. They say a Ford truck has about 350,000 miles max. I believe that Andre flat used up all his miles in 73 years, pedal to the metal. He used them all up, and that's what happened. Now let's change gears. Andre met Jeannie, his wife, in New Orleans. Emily told me the story, at a crawfish boil on April 1st, 1984. They were married the same year in December, 1984. Jeannie and his wife came to work for the law firm of Vincent & Elkins for Joe B. Allen, who's sitting right out here, and worked directly for Joe B., and this was in 1993. They moved with Jeannie and the 2 children, Emily and James. James is not here today, but he is in Denver, Colorado, and we're on a live stream. I think he's watching. So hi, James. I'm going to wave to you. And he's watching from Colorado. Andre always had grandiose ideas. And if you knew him, you know what I'm talking about. But luckily, he had Jeannie, who was a lawyer, to kind of bring him back down to ground. And Jeannie was a mud and levy attorney. And I really think that Jeannie had a lot to do with his success behind the scenes, because we had a lot of discussions, and he would say, I want to do this, this, and this. And Jeannie would say, oh, I don't know about, no. Let me tell you why you shouldn't do that. And so she would kind of temper some of his grandiose ideas, but that made him a better director. Andre was active 18, 19 hours a day. Whether he was working or playing, he was go to bed at 1, 2 o'clock at night, and the next morning at 5:30, he's fresh as a daisy. The guy could live on 3 hours sleep. And we would go to a levy convention somewhere, and he is closing down the place at 1 o'clock, and he's calling me at 5:30. You ready for breakfast? I'm thinking, oh, Andre, when do you sleep? The guy never slept. He's just a few hours of sleep. He was like the Energizer Bunny. He just kept going and going and going. Andre was a voracious reader. He loved to read. And I'm going to tell you a story. In 1993, there were two newspapers in Sugar Land, the Post and the Chronicle. Shortly, the Post after that folded up. But this was before the internet. So these were not small papers. They were about this thick each. And on Sunday, they were like this thick. He wasn't, most people were content with one or the other. Not Andre. He had to have both papers. Both papers were thrown in the yard. And you know, Emily, what he did every morning. He took one paper down and he read every page cover to cover. Then he took the other paper cover to cover. If you want to know anything about anything in the Sugar Land, Houston, sports scores, anything, you call Andre at 7 in the morning. He's got it down. He's read both papers. Andre put his knowledge and passion into his work, making the Fort Bend levees the very best in the country. Not unusual for Andre to take a 250, 300-page RIP report or engineering manual from the Corps or from FEMA, read it cover to cover, study it, ask questions, dive into it. And so he could fully understand it. And then he would explain it to the rest of us, the mere mortals that were around him, bring it down to earth. And he worked tirelessly on the local level and the national scene. And that passion is why we named this pump station in his honor. Andre spent 20 years on LID2, and I was with him all 20 of those years. And Andre's years were not like normal director years. You know how they say dog years, a dog year, 7 human years? Well, Andre years, they weren't 7, but they were like 3. So his 20 years were like 60 of anybody else. So he was only on at 20, but it felt like he was at a very, very high level. He was president of the Fort Bend Flood Management for years. He ran 6 flood symposiums. He was the first recipient of the Scott Tucker Award given by NASMA in 2010. And he served on the National Academy of Sciences on levees with Corinne Jacoby, Susan Gilson, and David Marstead. All are here today to honor Andre. Let's talk about Washington, D.C. and lobbying, because Andre firmly believed, somebody talked about it, I mean it was Mike. He believed that being at the table with FEMA, the Corps of Engineers, and all the congressional offices. And he would say, and it was been said earlier, that if you're not at the table, then you might be on the menu. You probably are going to be on the menu. Because Andre had such an in-depth knowledge of these topics and the gift of being able to explain them, he was welcomed in these offices. Because let's face it, getting this levee information is not easy. You don't just look it up in the yellow page. It's hard to find. And they would welcome him in because they wanted the update. What's going on? And I have a way of kind of describing levees that Andre and I came up with, and most of you have heard me say it, but I'll say it quickly. And that is, in the U.S., basically you have the California levees on the West Coast. California has more levees than any state in the country. And then you have the Mississippi levees, and you guys, a bunch of you from that region. And I found out last night in the Mississippi Delta and all the tributaries, there's 3,700 miles of levee. So 3,700 miles of levees in Mississippi tributaries and system, plus all the California levees. That represents about 70–80% of the levees in the country. Then you have levees like us. You know, they're protecting crops, you know, tomatoes and out in California and whatever, asparagus. And the other people are beans and rice and other things. We're protecting homes, big homes. Look around you. High schools, stadiums, courthouse, hospitals. And as Andre would say, our cash crop is McMansions. That's what he called it. So we don't raise corn. We raise McMansions. It was once said by a staffer in Senator John Cornyn's office, after Andre had explained how the Fort Bend levees were different than the rest of the country, he said, let me get this straight. If you've seen one levee, you've seen one levee. Meaning that the levees are not the same. They're all different. And you can't broad brush with one policy the whole country. Our levees are very, very unique in Fort Bend County. Today, I tried to be brief, which is difficult when you talk about Andre, but we talked about how this event came to be, Andre's early life, his levee career, and of course a few funny stories along the way. Today we honor Andre McDonald in naming this largest inland pump station in the state of Texas with his name. May it forever keep Sugar Land dry. And now we'll bring up Emily. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, for the great speech, sharing about my dad's life and career and commitment to this community. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Emily McDonald. I'm Andre's daughter. First and foremost, I'd like to extend a very personal thank you to everybody involved in LID2. My dad was honored and excited and loved working with everyone who was involved with this project. All of the innovative and impressive projects that LID2 pulled together and pulled off, you know, he was just absolutely overjoyed and took personal pride in that. He was just thrilled to see it through, and he was determined to do so, and I'm sure that there's some stories about that we could all share. And he was particularly enthusiastic about this pump station being built. His home over that way, and on days where I'd go visit my dad, pick him up, go out to lunch, and we're driving by, he would point out what was being done. He would say what had been built, what needed to be built, why that was important, and how different and state-of-the-art this facility was going to be. He would point just and say, they're widening my ditches today, and my pumps are going to be able to pump over 1 million gallons a minute. He truly couldn't wait to see this place up and running and in action. And what a truly wonderful contribution this was going to be to our community. I really very much appreciate everything that LID2 did in creating this and finding it appropriate to name the pump house after my father, as he was so deeply invested in seeing this place come to fruition. It is my tremendous honor to be up here and thank everybody for doing that. It means the world. So on behalf of my family, thank you so very, very much. And I think this is just the perfect ceremony and day, as we got to do two of my dad's favorite things today, and that's learn and celebrate. So thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Now it's time to cut the ribbon. We're going to cut this ribbon. We're going to move it out a little bit, yeah. These are sharp. They're very sharp. They were like swords. We practiced with them the other day, and I said, like weapons. No, they were great, but they were real food. There we go.
Do you have a license?
You need a license to carry these bad boys.
Pretend?
Ready?
You just want us to pretend?
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, so what are we gonna cut on one?
Ready?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not yet.
oh.
One more time.
We're not pretending anymore.
Okay, this is the real one. Okay.
1, 2,
2,
3.
3, go.
Yeah, put it in first. Yeah. They really do cut.
Who got good?
Okay. Now, thank you, Emily. Now we're going to move to what we call Remembering Andre. So I told a few of my little stories, but there's a whole list of people here that are going to have 1 to 3 minutes to tell their little story. And I'm going to call on Stephen Gambrell first. I have a list here, and you can come up or you can stay at your place. You got 3 minutes, Stephen. It can be a funny story. It can be anything you want about Andre.
Yeah. So we run a little levee district from St. Paul, Minnesota to the Gulf of Mexico, 3,700 miles of levee, so just a small operation, very small. We have pump stations. We have 1.5 million acres for water to store. It's an amazing system. Andre was a maven. He was a connoisseur of information, and then he was so generous to share that, even with folks at the Mississippi Valley Flood Control Association. And he made a connection between Texas and our association. And he made it not just because we have 18 congressional members that are part of the organization as officers, but he made it because he knew it made sense. This is what we do. Our cash crop is people. It's not houses. It's not farmland. It's people and a way of life. And those people and their way of life produce for this country and for folks around the world essential elements like food and fiber. What you do makes a difference. What Andre did in connecting us makes a difference. Now, each of us have a mission. We stand in the gap between these local people and everybody else for the future of the country and for the future of production on this great land. People, that's our cash crop. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Dan Delich, you're up. There's no shortage of people with stories about Andre.
Glenn, wonderful. Emily, my goodness. There's some speaking talent there. Well done. We did lose a friend. Emily and James, of course, lost a father. But we did lose a friend in December. Flood control lost a friend, and frankly, good sense lost a friend. When you would call Andre, or you would see him at an event and hadn't seen him in a while, in both cases he would say, "Hiya," or "Howdy," but "Hiya." And he did have all sorts of things. He told me that he didn't write this one, but Camelot on the Brazos, I guess, was a marketing line.
He wrote it.
Oh, he did write that. Okay. Okay.
He definitely wrote that.
Well, Life is Grand in Sugar Land was another one that I remember. And he had so many, just one or two. This ain't my first rodeo. If that ain't a fact, God's a possum. Regarding a miserly friend or institution, he'll squeeze a nickel till the buffalo screams. About modesty, never miss a good chance to shut up. That was directed my way once or twice. Look, Andre was someone who was more than willing to fight, to argue, but to avoid being argumentative. He taught us to not sweat the small stuff, to be decisive, to be reliable, to do your homework, to make friends, to have fun, and to make a difference. And he sure did that. So onward and upward, Andre McDonald.
Thank you, Dan. Corinne Jacoby, you are up, girl.
Hi there. Yeah, as Dan said, we lost a dear friend. Y'all, of course, lost your father. But, I traveled a lot with Andre. We went on a lot of trips to NAFSMA, NWC, Mississippi Valley, and shared many a good meal together and a cocktail. He got me drinking those darn Sazeracs, that he thought was just the best thing. And over those drinks, we had a lot of levee conversations. He taught me a lot. every once in a while I'd be a little stubborn and I'd see the same thing and he'd get frustrated and say, well, you're not thinking about that right, you know? And we'd kind of go back and forth a little bit, and it was good. Andre always, you know, was willing to do his part in anything that you worked on him with, and usually that was more than his fair share, but on occasion, you know, kind of went the other way. And one of the stories he'd like to tell was when he was overseas, and him and the guys got their money, and they, you know, went on leave and ran up to Hong Kong to spend it and have a good time. And the one guy, he's, you know, they're living it up, and the guy, I'll get the drinks, and it's like, oh, okay. And then they have nice dinner, you know, Peking duck or whatever was the big thing, you know, at the time. And the other guy says, well, I'll get dinner. And then they're winding up, getting ready to go home, and heading out. And Andre, he said, well, I'm gonna do my part. I'll get that taxi. Well, the water taxi was about $1 as compared to hundreds for the other, but he was going to do his part. And you know, he was jovial always, and gracious, and as many of you, well, I'll dearly miss him. So thank you.
Corinne, it wasn't $1, it was 10 cents. It was $1 Hong Kong, it was 10 cents US. He loved to tell that story. And the drinks were $230, and the dinner was like $600, and the cab was 10 cents. Kyle Gilster, I know you've got a good story.
Hey everybody, my deepest sympathies, Emily. I had the opportunity to meet Andre McDonald in 2006. I'm a lawyer in DC, and I met both him and David Oliver, and take a lot of pride. They were my second client. You know, as a lawyer, you know, you always remember your first couple, 2-3 clients, because it's hard to get clients. And thoroughly enjoyed it. I represented him in DC on a variety of issues, and Andre and I like to come up to Capitol Hill, and I'd walk him around. And the best story I got is we were outside the Dirksen building on the Senate side, and I like to go pretty quick. We had a pretty tough schedule, Texas delegation, and we were going over to the House side, and I get in the cab first, and then Andre gets in the cab, and then the cab driver takes off before Andre's fully in the cab. So he has one leg in, the other leg is not in the cab. So the cab goes about 10 feet. I yelled him to stop. Andre falls out of the cab, backwards, hits his back, cuts his suit pants, and his leg starts bleeding. Oh my God. And I said, Andre, we need to get you some medical attention. He said, oh no, we're going to our next meeting. And I said, no, I can't bring you in there bleeding. And he was so dedicated to the cause, he wanted to go. Well, he went over to the Rayburn building, and for those of you on the Rayburn building on the House side, there's a health aid little office. And I said, we need to first go. So I go in there. He did not want to go. We went in there, and there was a nice younger nurse said, come here, I'll take, you know, and then Andre said, okay, I'll stay. And so then he said, you go to the meeting, come back to me after the meeting. So I go back, and I come in, and the lady up front said, now you're with Andre. So in that short 20 minutes, Andre knew everybody there, and everybody knew Andre. And so I came back to Andre, and by now his pants were kind of cut up, they were cleaned up, and he said, Kyle, I'm good, you can handle the next meeting. So I'm going to miss him dearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. David Oliver. Is David here? Yeah, David, there you are. David, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. David Oliver with Allen Boone Humphreys Robinson. We've had the privilege of representing LID2 since its inception back in the 70s. More capably represented by Joe Allen, but I've tried to carry the mantle for almost the last. You get no argument. How do you follow Joe? But I have had the privilege of representing for almost 20 years LID2. and the great privilege of working with Andre through really seeing him. He was on the board a little bit before I started working on it, but I had the opportunity to work with him on a number of things. And I would say Andre was impactful. You've heard a lot of stories today that led to this facility and a lot of other facilities and it being named for him. But he was impactful. But impactful people sometimes are controversial. And I say it with great love and appreciation that Andre could be controversial from time to time. And what was amazing to me about Andre is was the jovial spirit that he had. For as impactful and hard charging he could be, there was a true warmth, and it's reflected actually. Whoa. So he didn't like it. Well, no, he'll like it. It is a warmth that you saw in his smile. The warmth that you saw in his smile, the warmth of his greeting that Dan described, a hiya or a hey there, how you doing? And it lit up a room and it made you feel good. It made you feel like he was glad to hear from you. He was also known for his one-liners. Justine Cherney, who is the legal assistant for LID2, has worked for us forever and worked on this district, actually kept a log, because she had to sit through every board meeting that I presided over and kept a log of all of his zingers and one-liners. And I would tell you, it was said earlier that he sought good advice. Unfortunately, Commissioner Patterson left, but we were kidding. I said, well, most of the time he listened to good advice. Sometimes he didn't, and sometimes he just spoke before you could give him that advice. But truly, I always think of him as a scholar and a gentleman. But you know what? He also had a conviction that you've heard about today, and I got to see that a lot over the last 15 years, particularly when Fort Bend County went through the recertification process, the remapping of the floodplain, the recertification process. When Andre got really started to get involved at the federal level, like you've heard about, I had the good fortune to be able to travel with him and actually work with him in shaping a lot of policies, and had the opportunity to sit in a number of meetings with the who've come here today to honor him and see this facility. And whether it was negotiating an agreement for the Ditch H widening project, whether it was putting the perimeter levee agreement in place that was mentioned earlier, whether it was establishing the Fort Bend Flood Management Association, and it's talked about his food. Andre and I hatched the idea for the Flood Management Association over a bowl of gumbo at Good Company Seafood. Now that's not good New Orleans seafood, good gumbo, but it was close enough. It's pretty damn good. And then all the way through this pump station process. And one of the great things about Andre is he pushed hard. He pushed the boundaries a little bit, and that's how you get things done sometimes. Sometimes he pushed it a little too hard. Commissioner Patterson and I were laughing about that. He pushed Commissioner Patterson pretty hard a few times. That's an appointed levee district position, and there are times I think Commissioner Patterson thought about questioning that appointment. But at the end of the day, Commissioner Patterson saw, and I think county commissioner saw, the county judge saw, and anybody that ever worked with Andre at any level saw that he held the facilities that he was responsible for to the highest standards. And he always wanted to make sure that anything he did was of the highest standards, and that it represented Sugar Land and Fort Bend LID2 very well at any level. He believed very much in our system. He took ownership of it, and he really viewed himself as an ambassador and a steward of the system that we have in place here. And I'm just I'm very glad, I'm very happy for this day to come. I'm sorry that he's not here to see it, because he truly was a champion for not being complacent, but making sure that this community and this district were served in the right way, which is facilities that protected them based on the latest available information, getting a bond election passed, getting support at all the different levels, and getting a group of directors organized to bring about this facility if you think about what went into it in less than 5 years, I mean, that's from Harvey to 60, 90 days after Harvey. There was a plan. There had been a study, there was a plan, and there was preliminary approach, and that took longer than that to get it rolled out. But this is no small accomplishment, and in large part due to Andre. Now, the other board members, the other local officials, the city of Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, have all been great partners in that. And so I think everybody certainly deserves a pat on the back, but I just, it does my heart good to be here today, to be able to FBCLID2 and certainly recognize Andre for his service and achievement, and for really pushing us all. I would say myself, I would say even the other levy directors, which I know he'd be honored that so many of you were here from the community, and I see Ron Frerich smiling a little bit. There's always a little bit of push it, and Andre pushed buttons, but I think if everybody acknowledged it, nobody ever agreed, but Andre pushed everybody to the next level. And he made people sharpen their game. He made people step up, and they didn't always agree and they don't always follow, but he challenged people to be their best. And I think anybody who worked with him, anybody who knew him, would upon reflection, if you don't know it, would recognize and acknowledge that he made each of us better, and we're all better for having known him. So I just want to take that opportunity to say that, you know, sometimes when people push your buttons or they're hard charging, there's a point behind it. And a day like today in a facility like this reminds you what being dynamic and what being a little bit edgy can do sometimes. He was a great friend. He was a great director. He will be missed, but I'm so happy that his legacy will continue on with this facility. Thank you all very much.
And by the way, that $88 million bond issue passed 77% to 23, so it passed big. And also, we had an operational pump station in 4 years. Now, it's not completely finished, all the little interior build out, but we can pump water. And in 4 years, from, as I call it, dirt to daisies in 4 years, from a piece of dirt to an operational pump station, pretty much unheard of. Okay, next up is Susan Gilson. You're up.
I just wanted to thank you, Glenn, and I'm really honored that NOPSMA is a part of this today. And I just want to tell you a little bit about my background, only because it will make you understand the impact that Andre had on me. So I grew up in Western New York. I started off after college working for mayors, and that included the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, Duluth, Minnesota, my hometown of Jamestown, New York, and the mayor of New Orleans, Dutch Morial. So I had this New Orleans connection with your dad, but I have to tell you, I credit Andre for expanding my vocabulary in a way I never heard, like from the other folks in New Orleans. So, I mean, the first thing was a text message from Andre when I, first met him early on, asking me, would you care to join me for a sarsaparilla? Like, no one had ever asked me to join them for a sarsaparilla before. And Steve Gerald had to leave early, but the other thing that came up, and I'm sure you've heard it in your home, because we were invited to dinner, and Jeannie was going to be there, and Andre, and Steve Fitzgerald, our president, was here at the same time from Harris County. So I said, is it possible for Steve Fitzgerald to join us? And Andre just so politely said, of course, he's your spousal equivalent. So, which has been my favorite word ever to my spouse. I don't know that he liked it as much, but... And then the other comment that after spending time together for years, he called me about something. And then at the end of the call, he just said, your mother brung you up right. and I had never heard that one either. So those are some of the things I think about of Andre. And so lucky that we had a good friend. And thank you and your brother for sharing him, and your mother. I just feel so honored to have known them both. The last thing I'm going to share is Andre, there was little issue. I mean, there was probably more about me that drove him crazy, but But the one issue was the Princess Bride. And I know some of the NOFSMA folks will appreciate this, but I'm not a fan. I think I'm one of the very few people who didn't like the Princess Bride. But for some reason, our former president, Dusty Williams, and Andre were convinced that I was missing out on a big part of my life by not loving the Princess Bride. So there were things in my life that are kind of funny related to that. But I mean, like, I've got a coffee mug that says "As you wish." As I would go off and work in the morning, my husband would say, "Good luck storming the castle." I had no idea that came from Princess Bride. So because I work with the Corps of Engineers and their logo is a castle. So that was one of Andre's favorite things, was to somehow nudge me a little bit and pick on me over, good luck storming the castle. So Andre, I appreciate it. I know you stormed the castle, and I feel like so much a part of here today. So I really appreciate this, and what a wonderful gesture. So thanks.
Thank you, David Marstead from FEMA, you're up.
Well, so also first, thank you for including me in this wonderful celebration. Really quite an honor. As he told me, one of the first times when we met back probably in 2005 or so, when I was with FEMA from 2001 to 2008, my first time with FEMA, I came back in 2016. He was very much made sure that I knew all of the work that was done here was without any of the federal assistance. And you know what? As a taxpayer, I want to thank you also. I think the programs that I'm a part of, probably about $8 to $10 billion a year. So obviously, a lot of money is spent across the country in mitigation and preparedness and whatnot. So I'm here also. There could have been a number of other individuals from the federal government that could have been here also, because he made that kind of a difference. And so for all of them, I want to congratulate and express great gratitude for all that he did. One of the best things about being last on one of these things is a lot of things have already been said, but just to, he did make a difference. He had this thing about community flood insurance. I'm sure you've heard him talk about that. And I did serve on a National Academy of Science committee with him, and so he was constantly talking about this. And was why didn't I embrace this idea, and why couldn't FEMA do this? And I said, well, we're working on a few other things, trying to straighten out in the program, and as soon as we get those all fixed, then we'll start thinking about community-based flood insurance. My point is, I think it was, Kyle, the 2014 HFIA, the reauthorization of the bill, there was a provision in there that FEMA should study whether or not there should be community-based flood insurance. Now, there's not a lot of folks that are able to pull something like that off, but as been witnessed already, he was mighty powerful, good thinker. Needless to say, there were many times he and I did not agree on things, but that was just a part of our roles, what he needed to do and what I needed to do. But I continued, when I was away from FEMA, we continued our relationship, and then when I went back, I think he was one of the first folks that came in to see me when I went back to FEMA. So I've thoroughly enjoyed always working with him. Everything else that's been said, I'm not going to say again, other than it's a marvelous day, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it.
Thank you, David. And David was supposed to be our last speaker, but now we have one more, and that's Commissioner Andy Myers. He came in and said he wanted to say a few words. I knew he knew Andre very well.
Thank you. Well, thank all of y'all for being here today. And thank y'all for allowing me to be part of the celebration and recognition of the life of a very remarkable man. David alluded earlier earlier, but when he said that it was an appointed position, I don't know if y'all are aware that it is Fort Bend County's Commissioners Court, the governing body of the county, that actually appoints the board members to all the levee improvement districts in Fort Bend County. And as I recall, it was Commissioner Patterson who appointed Andre first, so Patterson is responsible for unleashing the whirling dervish on the rest of us. So you can blame him. He left before I could point out the fact that, that it was all his fault. Just before Andre passed, I went up to the hospital to visit with him, and I got there and I saw Emily, who was lovingly watching over her dad as he never quite woke up, but every time he would kind of jerk in the bed from, I'm sure from the pain that he was experiencing, she would hop up to see if there's something she could do to help him out. I'm sorry to bring back bad memories for you. But it demonstrated, the true love that she had for her dad. And that touched me. I was very impressed by the fact that she would be so attentive to him in that time. The thing I remember about Andre was his rather outlandish ideas. All of those of you who knew him well, he always had grandiose plans, and he was explaining his plan one time to me about how we needed to take over the Brazos River. Because that was a problem. I mean, you just take it over. And I said, well, why stop there, Andre? Why don't we just take over the state? I can certainly do a lot better job of running it than those guys can. That was Andre, and I know that all of y'all have very fond memories of you that knew him, and those of you who didn't, hopefully you got a little bit of a sense of the type of individual that Andre was and the outstanding man, husband, father, servant to his community that he was. And it is an honor to be part of honoring him today, and thank y'all again for being here.
I'm going to bet that everyone in here has a little story, but I was warned that if I let this go on, we'll be here till midnight. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it off right there. We're going to break a bottle of champagne in Andre's honor with Rashid. And
I have something else to do.
You want to do it first?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Glenn Gale got smarter and left LID2. But the board, the new board, of course, after him, they passed a resolution some time ago honoring him for his service also. Like we have been talking about Andre, and of course it's unbelievable services that he has done for this community and LID2, and of course the whole LID community and water related events. But Glenn has also been fantastically active, and you all know him. I don't have to give that speech. So in this, thank you very much from the LID2 board.
Thank you
for all the work you have been doing, and what he did for this event itself, really. And my good friend Debbie, please stand up. You deserve a bow, because Debbie, you have done so much. These people have been working almost day and night. Okay, now I'm not going to go into that now, but no, these two people have been working day and night with the help of ACHR and, as I said, Tina, and of course generally. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, you can.
Thanks, Rashid. Okay. That's not my program.
No, it was for you, my friend.
But anyway, Andre loved sailing and loved boats. And one of the things you do with a boat, when you christen a boat, is you break a bottle of champagne. I did a little bit of research on exactly why. And the first description we have of a christening is the American warship christening of the Constitution, famous Old Ironsides, at Boston on October 21st, 1797. Seafaring of old believed that breaking a bottle on your ship as it was launched or named afforded it luck for the many seafaring journeys that lay ahead. The U.S. Navy's first steel battleship, the USS Maine, was the first one to be launched with champagne in 1890. So I got to tell you a little story. We tried to buy some of the pre-scored bottles of champagne, but with COVID, you can't find them. And so I bought a bottle of champagne, and actually we bought 2 or 3 of them, and actually there's a champagne named Andre Champagne. And we said, well, we're just going to break one of those because we couldn't find the ones that are pre-cut. And so Rashid and I came out here last week, and on that corner right over there, it took 6 tries to break it. I had no idea how thick a bottle of champagne is because it's under pressure. And to break it, you really have to hit it way up at the neck. And it's very dangerous. So we said, we're not doing it. So today, yeah, it actually cracked the brick a little bit. So anyway, so I found these nice little bottles that have confetti in them. So I want Emily and her husband and Rashid to come up.
I would also like to have the rest of the board members. Please, Jeff, come in.
Come on, dude.
Anyway, we have 4 of them.
Sam?
And so what we're going to do is we're going to christen the pump station, and I'll read it. I want you guys to do it. And I'll read the christening.
Okay.
And we have one more. Here you go. You can have it in there. So what you're going to do, don't do it yet, but when we count down, you're going to turn the bottom clockwise, and it's going to go up. And I want somebody to film this.
Procedure.
Now, we have not tested these, so we don't really know if they work or not. So maybe I'm going to get over here a little ways away. But let's get them. And so I hereby name and christen this pump station the PS for pump station, Andre McDonald. Hey. May it forever keep Sugarland dry. Turn the bottle. Turn it. Oh, baby! There you go. I think it went, didn't it? You didn't go?
No.
Tyler? You got one more? Hey, we got one more. All right. Thank you. We have a couple of last things to do here. We have an artist in our midst, and his name is Chris Peterson. He painted these original photos of Andre, and the 2 originals are going in the pump station, and 2 prints are going to the 2 children. They'll all be framed. Also, he has painted a copy of a big pump station, one that fell over. It's in there. And this one's going to be given away in just a few minutes. This is an original of the oldest bar in the country, and it's in New Orleans, fittingly. And it's at 930 Ward Bourbon, Lafitte Brothers Blacksmith Shop, and it's been in business for 300 or 400 years. Still in business today, and that's an original print, an original painting that's going to be given away here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we have a very special treat. Chloe Trevor is a very well-known violinist. She plays with the symphony in Dallas. She's a soloist, and in Houston. Her dad is the conductor, I believe, is that right, of the Dallas Symphony. We know her as a family friend, and she also is a teacher. She teaches her granddaughter, Georgie, right here. And she's agreed to play some French type style music in honor of Andre. So we're going to have one song here, and then maybe a little background music, and then she's going to play more songs at the reception and some of her original music. But when she goes on stage with a symphony, the tickets are $150. So you're going to see a very first class, way out of our league. But we need a little class. We need a little class. So I think we have a music stand. You bringing up the music? Okay. Here's my daughter. And we're going to hear When the Saints Go Marching In. Chloe Trevor. And so if you didn't need any other reason to go to the reception, I'm going to give you 12 more. And let me just tell you a little story. When we signed the contract for the Enchanted Rock generators, who you saw, one of the owners of the company was there, and I walked out with him, and I said, I can't remember his name, and I said, you know, Enchanted Rock, that's the name of a vodka, isn't it? He said, oh yeah, it is. And I said, well, who came first? Did you have the name first, or did Enchanted Rock? How did you get the name? Because it's, you know, same name, generator, Enchanted Vodka. He said, no, we got it first. We started it. It's our name. I said, well, did you sell it to him? He said, no, we didn't sell it to him. We gave it to him. I said, why'd you do that? He said, well, we sell generators. They sell vodka. Who cares? You know, we're getting the name out there. It's okay. And besides, they send us 2 cases of vodka every year. So if you didn't need any reason to go to the reception, you have 12 now. When you stand up, do we have something else?
No, just before you do that, there are some empty chairs. I would suggest anybody wants a chance at this, grab a chair.
Yeah, underneath the chairs, there are 12 stickers. So if you're not sitting in a chair, I'd say sit down.
This is mine too.
Because underneath 12 of the chairs, tell me what color they are. Kena, somebody. They're purple stickers. If you have a purple sticker, you just want a 5th of Enchanted Rock vodka. But this is a government facility. We're not giving it out here. No. You got to come to the reception. And if you don't come to the reception, you ain't getting it. Okay? But it gets better. There's 1 sticker, and what color is it? A large gold sticker. And if you have the large gold sticker on your chair, you're walking home with this, an original painting, and you can have it right now. You don't have to come to the reception. So everybody take a look.
Don't take them home though. They are there.
So just peel off the sticker and bring it to the reception. And who has the gold one? Come up and get your prize. Yes. I want you to come up here. Oh, there it is! Look at that! Hector with freezing nickels. You are the man. All right, you're gonna take it home. It's yours. It's yours. It's an original painting. An original painting. Where's the artist? Hey, Chris Peterson. Where are you? Okay, come up. Come up. Okay. You got to bring those to the reception. Yeah. Okay. Good job, man. Thank you. Got it? Okay. That's yours. Put it in your car. Thank you. I think we'll take them to the reception. You'll get your bottle. Hey, good to see you, sir. Oh, glad.
That was amazing.
You like it?
You
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was great. How'd you like it? You got one? You got to go to reception? Oh, good. And we did it quick. 4:30. Hour and a half. You think it was okay? You got one too. I love it. Enchanted Rock vodka, baby. I'm a little nervous about sticking on it. It might fall off. I know. That's what I was like. Syke Sturdivant got one. Excellent. Oh, you got. Yes, we are, baby. Oh, look at all these. You know the Mississippi guys get cleaned up, baby. Oh, thanks for your help. Your help, her help. These are my 3 speech people right here. Oh, there we go. A little background music. Have a hard time holding it together. Hopefully.